The door is open.
Tonight on Dispatches, how a fundamentalist Muslim group has secretly infiltrated the Labour Party and the broader political system.
They are acting almost as an interest organisation, placing people within political parties.
How it wants an Islamic state or caliphate, and how it wants to live by Sharia law in the UK.
Democracy, if it means that, you know, at the expense of not implementing the Sharia, no one's going to agree with that.
And how it's already exerting influence over a London Borough Council with £1 billion budget.
That's not the basis on which local councils should be run. That's not the basis on which any political party should try to go into power.
The biggest Islamic institution in Europe, the East London Mosque in Whitechapel. It presents itself as a beacon of moderation and tolerance.
What we plan to do is to work for the community cohesion, community harmony, so that the British Muslims feel at home in the wider British society and they can contribute to the pluralist Britain.
The British establishment has built close links, ministers, the Lord Chief Justice, and even Prince Charles.
There is, I believe, far more that unites than divides the different faiths in this country.
More than £10 million of public money has been paid to this mosque or associated organisations, some of it under the government's Preventing Violent Extremism programme. The elders have been given places on many official bodies, including the board of the London Olympics. And the mosque has close relationships with the Mayor of London.
What have you done here? Well, we've had a wonderful morning here at the East London Mosque, which is the greatest, most historic of London's mosques, and we've been talking a little bit about how to break down prejudice and the huge work that's being done by this mosque and the people who work here.
But tonight, Dispatches can reveal that this mosque complex houses a fundamentalist organisation and that taxpayers are unwittingly helping to finance its planned and coordinated bid to infiltrate British politics.
And somehow it's all gone horribly wrong, and somehow the very people who we should be saying are beyond the pale are in fact inside ministers' offices, sitting around the table having cups of tea.
We've discovered that the East London Mosque's claim of moderation is questionable.
This is a little game I like to play. Spot the fag.
Abdul Karim Hateen is considered extreme, even by some on the hardline Islamist circuit.
The lifestyle, the fag lifestyle. Fag lifestyle.
In 2007, a conference held by an extremist publishing company at the East London Mosque complex gave him a platform, along with this man.
Any woman who comes out of her house perfuming herself, every single eye that looks at her, فَإِنَّهَا هِيَ زَانِيَةٌ, she's an adulterous woman.
This is Murtaza Khan, also a well-known fundamentalist.
The fornicating woman and fornicating man, flog them 100 times.
These are just two of more than 20 extremist speakers who've spoken at the mosque over the last 3 years. They also include this man.
And then think about the final moments of entering into paradise or entering into hellfire.
This is Anwar al-Awlaki.
The reckoning of people is near, and they are heedless.
A man described by the US government as spiritual leader of two of the 9/11 hijackers. Here he is in a video address to a meeting at the East London Mosque complex, again organised by an extremist publishing company. The event was advertised with a poster showing New York under bombardment. Awlaki is one of the most controversial Muslim leaders in the world, most of all because he's associated with two recent attacks on the USA. The alleged Christmas Day plane bomber Umar Farouk Abdul Muttalib is said to have met Awlaki shortly before flying to Detroit with explosives under his clothing. Nidal Hassan, the Muslim army major accused of murdering 12 of his fellow soldiers and a civilian in Texas, corresponded with Awlaki shortly before the attacks. Afterwards, Awlaki called Hassan a hero and a man of conscience who could not bear serving in an army fighting against Muslim people.
The government is meant to be preventing violent extremism. Instead, they're pumping money into a mosque which hosts extremist preachers.
Now, not every extremist becomes a supporter of violence, and not every supporter of violence becomes violent themselves to the point of becoming a bomber or a suicide bomber. Obviously not. But for the terrorists to succeed, they don't need everybody to be radicalised in that way. They just need one or two people.
The East London Mosque is strongly linked to a fundamentalist group called the Islamic Forum of Europe, whose headquarters are in the same complex. The mosque calls the IFE a social welfare organisation, but this IFE leaflet says that it is dedicated to changing, quote, the very infrastructure of society, its institutions, its culture, its political order and its creed, from ignorance to Islam. The IFE says that it is an open and transparent community organisation, committed to community cohesion and religious tolerance. A transcript of one of its training sessions held last June says that members of its youth wing should perform a lot of good deeds, respect others, speak only that which is good. But in the same transcript, the teacher, a senior IFE activist, also lays out ambitious plans to impose the group's views on society.
Our goal is to create the true believer, to then mobilise these believers into an organised force for change, who will carry out dawah, preaching, hizbah, enforcement of Islamic law, and jihad, struggle. This will lead to social change and ikmatuddin.
Ikmatuddin is usually translated as an Islamic social, economic and political order, but the IFE insisted to us it simply means establishing religious values. The teacher also warned recruits of the importance of
protecting yourself from all types of haram, music, TV and free mixing with women in that which is not necessary.
What exactly do IFE-type Islamists want? What is their agenda?
IFE type of Islamists are inspired by a particular brand of Islamism. It believes in creating an Islamic state. It believes in following a very medieval interpretation of Islamic law and that being imposed upon the whole of society. It believes in creating a Muslim bloc that adheres to their point, to their interpretation of Islam.
Another speaker at the same training session told recruits,
victory is for Islam and Muslims.
They were instructed to identify
who the enemies are, both from outside the circle of Islam and within the circle of Islam.
This second speaker, Abdullah Zain Al-Abdin, contacted Dispatches today. He said the transcript of his talk had been written by the IFE with their own interpretation, and he'd asked them to remove it from the website. Another older leaflet sets out the organisation's vision for political as well as spiritual change. It says the IFE
strives for the establishment of a global society, the Khalifa, comprised of individuals who live by the principles of the Sharia.
The IFE also associates with some hardline fundamentalists. Last year it invited the spokesman for an Afghan warlord, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, to speak at the East London Mosque complex. Hekmatyar's forces have fought alongside the Taliban against British troops. And then the IFE promoted this meeting, also at the same mosque complex. Bilal Phillips was alleged by the US government to be an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing that killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. Hussein Yi is a 9/11 conspiracy theorist and has said that on that day, a group of Jews had a celebration. They had a party going on. Anwar al-Awlaki is another IFE favourite. Twice the IFE gave him a platform in 2003, and senior activists have praised him much more recently. Although since the 2009 terrorist attacks to which he's been linked, IFE activists and the East London Mosque have publicly dissociated themselves from Awlaki. The IFE and the East London Mosque are closely intertwined. The mosque's chairman, Dr. Bari, is a former president of the IFE. The IFE's last president is vice chair of the mosque. Over the last 5 years, the IFE's had 20